Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
I have with me Mr. Allan Anderson today, who's a pioneer in online education. He started the world's first completely online school in Copenhagen, Denmark, and now he's bringing the same experience to a school in Bangalore. We are speaking to him today because online education is extremely important in times of COVID-19 when education has completely shifted online. Welcome to ThePrint, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you very much.
So, like I said in my introduction, you are one of the pioneers in digital education. I would like to start this interview by asking you, how does school in Copenhagen function, and how do you plan to bring the experience from that school to here in India?
Yeah. In my school in Copenhagen, we had only digital learning materials, and we used the technology to collaborate and to produce and create. But what's important to underline is that what we did is blended learning. That is using digital resources for everything we did, but always with a human component. So we had teachers coaching the students, we had students sitting in the school and doing projects together. Mm-hmm. And they used technology as a tool and as a way of organizing the school day and collaborating with each other. Mm-hmm. Okay. So in that sense, it was online because we were online all the time. We could do all the learning activities from everywhere. But it was also analog because we had teachers and students actually being together. And I think in K-12 education, in the ideal world, technology should be blended with physical activities where people are together. And that's what I want to take with me to India. I know that right now is a different situation. Mm-hmm. The schools can't open and have analog activities because of the pandemic situation. So therefore the schools have had to do online learning. And they have done it in a very impressive way. Very fast teachers learned how to do it. They had never done it before, but even then they did it. But that is for me not the ideal situation. That's the second best. So what I can see now in India is that there's a lot of optimism about what technology can do. And I'm also very optimistic. But I don't think that K-12 learning should be online, because the development of emotional and social competences, developing of character and identity and collaboration is so important for children in their development. And it's very difficult. It can be done to some extent, but it's very difficult to do with merely online learning.
So, to break it in simple words for our viewers, how would a typical online class, a typical online school begin? Is it similar to the physical schools, starting different periods and breaks in between, or how different or how similar it is from the physical schools?
One thing that will be different from what most schools do in India and all over the world is that by organizing online learning, you don't need to copy the classroom teaching model. Of course, there need to be assemblies where you instruct the children, where they can present their results of their work. But the real power of technology is that students can work with projects they are engaged in. They can use the digital tools. They can make inquiries without a teacher doing the work for them. So a typical school day would be a day with assemblies where you start the activities, tell the children what to do today. And then there will be periods where they work on their own in groups. I would organize online project groups where children can work together. And sometimes the teachers will take part and give them coaching, and sometimes they won't. And there will also be individual talks with every single student, so that we can ensure that even though we are online, we are also developing the social and personal skills of the child. But what I think is really important is that with the help of technology, teaching can be set free in a new way without losing control, because the teachers will know what the children are doing, but they are working in their own pace. They are collaborating with each other. They are following their own passion and solving problems. And if you copy the classroom model and make 6 lessons a day, then you don't really use the power of technology. Because the power of technology is to personalize learning and to make it engaging and inquiry and activity-based. So my school day would have some sessions with screen instruction, but most of the day would be activities, some of them online with project groups, and some of them where children walk out of their home and make inquiries in the neighborhood or whatever they would be doing.
So, I mean, in an Indian context, how does it differ from how the school was in Denmark to localize it? How much effort has gone into localizing the system here? And I'm sure, I mean, you and your team must have done studies around the sociological character of India and localized the learning. So, how have you localized it? Is what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, one thing that is very important in Indian education and for Indian parents is academics. Parents want to be sure that the students learn what they need to learn to be prepared for the final tests, so that they can get a good education. And Indian parents are more focused on that than parents in my country. Because we have social security, we don't need to be so afraid of not getting a good life, because we have many opportunities. So that's a very important difference. So what we are doing is that even though we want to organize our school with digital technology and with projects, we ensure that there is always an ambition academic component in everything we do. So we are creating a curriculum with 6,000 goals, many of them social and 21st century competences, but most of them academic, so that we are sure that whatever we are doing, there's always an academic component, so that we can tell parents that, yes, we have done projects, we have been working digitally, but your child is on the level where he needs to be in grade 3 in mathematics. So we emphasize that much more in the school I'm developing now, compared to what we were doing in Denmark. Because I know if we don't do that, if we fail in academics, then we fail as a school in India.
So how has the initial response been?
Our message has been very well received among parents. I think when I meet parents, I can feel that many parents want a change in Indian education. They think it's too stressful and too one-sidedly focused on tests. So when we talk about a holistic approach where we want to develop the whole character of the student and not only the left side of the brain, they are happy with that, because they want their children to be happy and thrive. But they also want them to be good in academics. So what we are seeking is this balance. So what I usually say is that I want to take the best from Scandinavia and combine it with the best from India. And if we can do that, we will be very successful, because the world needs that combination.
The Scandinavian education system typically is also very different from other education systems in the world. As you know, from whatever I have read about education systems across the world, it's more, like you said earlier, blended learning model and a lot of practical work involvement. So do you think Indians will largely open up to this kind of system?
I'm I'm really convinced that it will. And I can see so many beautiful things happening in schools all over India. I have visited a lot of schools. So I'm actually quite optimistic about the future for Indian education. But of course, it will be a challenge for many parents to understand the new education models where you use technology a lot, because it will be different from the kind of classroom teaching that you are accustomed to. But I can see from many talks with parents that they want change in Indian education.
They want changes.
Yeah, and the positive outcome of COVID-19 for India is that it has proved that change is possible. Schools actually have changed very fast and started online classes. Even schools without no experience with technology at all have done it. So many of the changes I'm talking about, where the personal and emotional and social elements of a person plays a bigger role, I think India is also mature for that.
Homeschooling is also a part of, is a kind of alternative education system that Indian parents are looking at. How much do you support that, and how much do you think that is going to grow in India as we go forward? Because of the pandemic, more and more parents are teaching their kids at home, online. Do you think it will kind of start a trend where homeschooling becomes the norm?
I see it as a trend right now.
Okay.
Because of the pandemic, many parents have thought, okay, I can do better than the online services from the school. And if I buy a license for a web portal with education services, I can do better as a mother. So I see that as a trend right now. Okay. And it's understandable, because there are very fine startup companies who create very fine education services, web-based portals. But I think we should be very cautious about taking that as a model, because learning should be a social activity. And if a child is only with his or her mother or father, then it will not develop the independence and identity and empathy that a child needs to develop. So I think schools should think more about that than they have done until now, because if schools are only focusing on academics, then online portals might be just as good. It can be very efficient for academics. But if you also want to develop the other sides of the personality, then it needs to happen in a social context. And the school should be that social context. And I can also hear from many children that they really miss their school. Even though they were tired of homework and teachers, they really miss the school, because they miss their classmates and even the teachers.
So in fact, this social context was going to be my next question to you. Now that children are like mostly, limited to being at home in front of screens or even studying with their parents, how do you develop the social etiquettes or social qualities in them? And how did you manage that with, completely online school back in Denmark?
In Denmark, we managed it by making blended learning, by making online activities combined with personal meetings between the students and the students and the teachers.
Okay.
And in a context where schools can't open, so you are not able to have these physical meetings, I think you should do as much as you can online. And online apps are very good for collaboration. Just as we can talk now, students can talk with each other even though they are not in the same room. They can talk to the teachers. So the teachers should organize learning where it is a social activity. So they shouldn't just copy the classroom model. They should create project groups. They should have sessions where they talk to every single student so that you know how the child is coping with the COVID-19 situation.
So, but when you started the first school in Denmark, there was no COVID, there was no pandemic.
No.
You came up with the idea of a completely online classroom or school. What is it that inspired you to come up with a completely online, kind of education system?
I think the most important inspiration was that I could see that it was necessary for education to be more personalized. It was necessary that we could ensure that each single student learned as much as possible. And I could see how difficult it was in a normal classroom to personalize teaching. It's a model where you teach 25 or 40 students at the same time and treat them as a unity. And therefore I could see very early on that technology provided an opportunity where everyone in a class can do something relevant. At the same time, the teachers can go from one student to the next and talk to them individually. So you could actually have more contact between the students and the teacher by having digital activities. So my dream was not just to be digital. My dream was really to have more personalized learning. And I could see that technology could help us doing that. And that I can see that even more in the way that technology has developed. So we have only seen the first steps with virtual reality and all the other new technologies, and much more can be done. And we can do much more to personalized online learning.
So clearly this is the only positive thing that has come out of this pandemic, I believe, changing the course, on a way to changing the course of education, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would like to end the interview by asking you one last question, sir. Do you think, like we discussed, this is a change in the way education systems across the world function. Do you think this is going to stay, or is it just a temporary kind of resort or measure which came with the pandemic?
It will definitely stay. At first, it will stay in colleges and universities. It's already happening. They are doing more what they call MOOC courses. So you can actually take a master's degree at Harvard without ever being in the US. So it's already started, and now it will happen even more. In K-12, I think it will also happen, but in a different way. K-12 institutions are generally quite conservative, so most of them will go back to the classroom-based model after the pandemic. But they will still have some elements of technology. So I think we'll have school days where children will not come to school, where they will do projects and they will be in contact with the teachers without coming to school. It can also be an answer to the problem many schools face, that they have too many students in the building. So if some of them could work from home, then you could actually have room for the rest of the children. And I can see in India, in villages where it's very difficult to get good teachers, qualified teachers, the help of online learning can be an important thing to enhance the quality of village schools in India. So it will change, but I think it will change faster in further education than it will in K-12.
Sure. Thank you so much for talking with us, sir, and all the very best for the upcoming venture in Bangalore.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.